She dumped me saying, "We'll always be friends." Weeks later, she found out what that really meant. She thought I'd wait, but my revenge quiet, lesson unforgettable. When Emma told me, "We'll always be friends," I nodded like it didn't hurt, but inside, something broke. We'd been together for 2 years, and I genuinely thought she was the one. That afternoon in the cafe, she couldn't even look me in the eye. Her hands trembled around the coffee cup, and I kept wondering if she felt half the pain I did. "You're such a great guy," she said, that classic line that always means the opposite. I smiled, said absolutely, and watched her leave, taking my plans, my trust, and my sense of direction with her. The next few days were strange. Everyone around me went on with their lives while I moved in slow motion. My phone stayed silent except for the occasional message from her, full of polite warmth that felt like salt on a wound. "Hope you're doing okay. Still want to grab coffee sometime?" Every text sounded like she was trying to keep me in orbit, close enough to comfort her ego, but far enough to avoid any real connection. I didn't reply. Not yet. Nights were the worst. The silence was heavy, filled with questions I couldn't answer. I replayed every conversation, every small shift in tone that led to that breakup. When did love turn into convenience? When did forever become maybe later? I realized I had spent years being her safety net, not her equal. She wanted freedom, but she also wanted me to stay there, waiting. That's when something inside me hardened. I decided I'd give her exactly what she asked for: friendship. Just not the kind she expected. The next week, I started focusing on myself again. Gym, work, friends, all the things I'd neglected while trying to be everything she wanted. The more I detached, the clearer things became. I stopped checking her social media. I stopped wondering who she was with. Instead, I started building a version of myself that didn't depend on her approval. The funny thing is, the moment I truly stopped caring, that's when she started noticing. It began with a comment on one of my posts, a photo of me at a friend's rooftop party. "Wow, you look great," she wrote, adding a smiley face. I didn't reply. Then a message followed: "Miss talking to you. How have you been?" I saw it, smiled to myself, and closed the chat. I wasn't cruel. I was just done being her backup plan. The friendship she wanted? I was finally ready to give it to her, on my terms. 2 more weeks passed before she texted again. "Hey, still up for that coffee?" I stared at the message for a while. The old me would have said yes immediately, hoping to see a flicker of what we once had. But the new me? He was busy. I waited a full day before replying, "Sure, I've got some time Friday afternoon." Short, polite, emotionless. When I walked into the cafe, she was already there, sitting at the same table where she'd broken up with me. It felt poetic, almost rehearsed. She smiled nervously, tucking her hair behind her ear. "You look good," she said. "Guess life's treating you well." I shrugged. "Yeah, can't complain." Her expression faltered for just a second. I didn't give her what she wanted. No nostalgia, no wounded eyes, no hint that I missed her. We talked about meaningless things. Work, mutual friends, the weather. But she kept circling back to the past, the things we used to do together. "Remember that road trip we took to the coast?" she said, her smile softening. I nodded, took a sip of coffee, and replied, "Yeah, that was fun." That was it. Nothing more. No invitation to linger in the memory. She studied me for a moment. "You've changed," she said finally. "You used to be warmer." I smiled. Maybe I just learned to save my warmth for the right people. Her face tightened. I could almost see her processing the shift in power. For the first time, she wasn't the one being missed. I was. She tried to laugh it off, calling me dramatic, but her hands gave her away, fidgeting, restless. "We can still be close, right?" she asked. "Like before." I leaned back and looked at her carefully. "We are close," I said evenly. "You're right in front of me." She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. That meeting ended with her saying, "Let's not lose touch," and me replying, "Of course not." But as I walked out, I already knew she was the one chasing a ghost now. The next day, she started liking every single thing I posted. Every story, every photo. I'd become the mystery in her world, the one she couldn't figure out anymore. And honestly, I liked that balance. By the 3rd week, Emma's tone had shifted completely. The confident girl who once said, "We'll always be friends," was suddenly the one trying to find reasons to talk to me. "You'd love this new cafe that opened downtown." She texted one morning. Remember that movie you made me watch? It's on Netflix now. Every message dripped with nostalgia, small hooks cast into the space where she used to live rent-free. But here's the thing. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was detached, calm, almost curious. The more she tried to reconnect, the more I saw what I hadn't before. Emma didn't miss me. She missed the version of herself she got to be around me. Safe, admired, forgiven. She didn't want to rebuild what we had. She just wanted to feel like she hadn't broken something beautiful. I didn't give her that comfort. Instead, I started living loudly. Weekend hikes with friends. New haircut. New jacket. Even joined a community photography group. My life began expanding in directions it never had while I was orbiting her moods. The pictures I posted online told a quiet story, one she couldn't control anymore. Then one night she called. Not texted, called. My screen lit up with her name at 10:47 p.m. For a second, I considered ignoring it. But curiosity won. "Hey," I said, keeping my tone casual. "Hey, sorry, I know it's late." Her voice was softer than I remembered. "I just wanted to hear your voice. It's been weird not talking to you." "Yeah, things change," I said simply. Silence. I could hear her inhale sharply, like she was searching for the right words. "Do you ever think about us?" she finally asked. "Sometimes," I said. "Mostly when I remember how much I learned." "Learned?" she repeated, almost offended. "Yeah, you taught me a lot about what I don't want to repeat." That one landed hard. She tried to laugh it off, but came out brittle. "Guess I deserve that," she muttered. We hung up soon after. I stared at my phone, realizing I didn't feel victorious or bitter, just done. Like a chapter closed cleanly, no tears, no bookmarks. But fate wasn't done with us yet. A week later, I got an invitation to a mutual friend's birthday party. I wasn't planning to go, until I saw Emma tagged in the comments. I smirked. Perfect. Time to show her what "we'll always be friends" really meant. The party was at a rooftop lounge downtown, one of those places with string lights, live music, and just enough glamour to make everyone pretend they were happier than they actually were. I arrived late on purpose. If Emma was there, I wanted her to see me walk in, not the other way around. I wore a simple black shirt, sleeves rolled just enough, nothing flashy. Confidence doesn't need decoration. The moment I stepped through the doors, heads turned, not because I was anyone special, but because energy changes when you know you've moved on. I spotted Emma near the bar, laughing with a group of people. For a moment, I saw the version of her I'd fallen in love with, carefree, magnetic, glowing. But then she saw me, and everything about her posture changed. Her laugh froze mid-sound. The glass in her hand wobbled slightly. And I'll admit, that flicker of surprise? It felt satisfying. "Wow," she said, walking over with that hesitant smile. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Same," I replied easily. "Didn't know this was your scene." "It's not," she said quickly. "Just came with friends." "Right," I smiled. "Friends." She caught the tone, and for a second, I saw the guilt behind her eyes. She tried to recover, asking questions, where I'd been, what I'd been up to, whether I was seeing anyone. I gave short, honest answers. Nothing defensive. Just enough to make her realize how far she'd fallen out of my orbit. Then something unexpected happened. My friend Leah walked in. We'd met a few weeks earlier at a photography meetup. She was sharp, funny, and very much present in her own life. When she saw me, she waved and came over immediately. "Hey, stranger. Didn't think you'd actually show up." Emma blinked. "You two know each other?" Leah smiled. "Yeah, this guy's been my favorite photo partner. Can't get him to stop talking about sunsets." I laughed, and something inside Emma cracked. She forced a polite smile, but her fingers twisted around her glass. "That's nice," she murmured. Leah turned to me. "Wanna grab a drink?" "Sure," I said, glancing back at Emma briefly. "Good seeing you." And just like that, I walked away. Not out of spite, but because I finally could. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like a supporting character in someone else's story. I was the one moving forward, and she was the one stuck watching. That night, as Leah and I laughed under the city lights, I caught Emma glancing over more than once. The irony was perfect. She had said we'd always be friends, but she never realized friendship wasn't the same as access. And now, she was finally learning that. Over the next few weeks, I noticed a pattern. Emma started showing up everywhere. The same coffee shop, the same weekend markets, even at the gym where she'd once claimed she hated the vibe. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Then, one morning, she appeared beside me at the treadmill and smiled like we were long-lost friends. "Hey, fancy seeing you here," she said, breathless but glowing. I smiled back, keeping my pace steady. "Yeah, small world." We made small talk, surface level, polite. But I could feel the tension humming underneath. She asked about Leah, pretending it was casual. "So, that girl from the party, are you two close?" I shrugged. "We hang out sometimes. She's great company." Something flickered across her face, something raw and involuntary. "Jealousy. That's nice," she said, forcing a smile that didn't last a second. Later that day, I got a message from her. "It's weird not talking like we used to. I kinda miss you." I read it 3 times. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't. I typed back slowly, "We can still talk." "That's what friends do, right?" She replied instantly, "You don't have to be cold." "I'm not," I sent. "Just doing what you asked for." That's when the silence began. She didn't reply that day. Or the next. But soon after, mutual friends started dropping subtle hints. "Emma's been asking about you," one said. Another added, "She looks off lately." A week later, she posted a photo, her sitting alone at a cafe, captioned, "Some friendships aren't what they seem." I couldn't help but laugh. The irony was almost poetic. She wanted me to play the part of the heartbroken ex still orbiting her. But now the roles were reversed. Leah noticed too. "Your ex seems to be lurking," she said one evening as we left a small art exhibit. "She'll get tired," I replied calmly. "She just doesn't like losing control." Leah smiled knowingly. "Well, she already lost the best thing she had, your attention." That line stayed with me, because it was true, and not in a self-congratulatory way. It was simply fact. The power Emma once held over me had dissolved. What remained was clarity. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't done. People like Emma don't walk away quietly. They return when they realize the door is no longer open, just to see if it still creaks. And I was right. The next time she reached out, it wasn't to talk. It was to ask for something she never thought she'd have to beg for. It was a Friday evening when her name flashed on my screen again, but this time, there was no polite small talk. Just a simple, desperate message. "Can we meet? Please. I really need to talk to you." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to ignore it, another part was curious. After all, she'd made it clear what she wanted months ago. We'll always be friends. Maybe now she was realizing what friendship with boundaries actually felt like. I finally replied, "Sure. Same cafe tomorrow at 3. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting exactly where she had when she first ended things. Deja vu hit hard. She looked different. Less polished, more tired. Her makeup was minimal, her eyes softer. She smiled faintly when she saw me. "Thanks for coming," she said quietly. "No problem. What's up?" For a moment, she just stared at her coffee, tracing the rim with her finger. Then, finally, "I've been thinking a lot lately. About us. About how things ended." I nodded but didn't say a word. She continued, voice trembling slightly. "I thought I needed space, freedom. I thought I could just move on, keep you as a friend, and still be fine. But I wasn't. You were always there for me, and I just—" She paused, swallowing hard. "I miss that. I miss you." It was strange, hearing the words I used to dream about. Once upon a time, I would have dropped everything to hear her say them. But now they just sounded elate. "I appreciate that," I said softly. "Really. But you ended it, Emma. You made your choice." "I know," she said quickly. "And I regret it every day. I thought I was doing the right thing, but seeing you now, you've changed. You seem so different." "I had to," I replied simply. "You can't stay the same after being replaced by friendship." Her eyes watered, and for a moment, she tried to smile. "So that's it. You're really done with me." I leaned back. "You said we'd always be friends, remember? I'm keeping my promise." The silence that followed was heavy, not angry, just final. She reached out as if to touch my hand, but stopped halfway. "I never thought you'd actually let me go," she whispered. "I didn't let you go," I said, standing. "You walked away. I just stopped following." Her lips parted, but no words came out. I left a few bills on the table, nodded politely, and walked out. As the door closed behind me, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. For the first time since that breakup, I understood that peace isn't revenge. It's indifference. Still, deep down, I knew this wasn't the last time I'd hear from her. People like Emma always circle back when they realize you no longer orbit them. And sure enough, 2 weeks later she did, but this time she wasn't alone. It happened on a random Saturday afternoon. I was at a friend's gallery opening with Leah when I saw her, Emma, standing by the entrance, her arm looped around a guy I'd never seen before. She looked radiant again, dressed perfectly, smile rehearsed. It was like she'd constructed a whole new version of herself just to prove something. Our eyes met. For a second, she froze, that tiny flicker of unease flashing behind her perfect expression. Leah noticed. "Is that her?" she whispered. I nodded casually. "Yep." Emma hesitated before approaching. "Hey," she said brightly, her tone a little too cheerful. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Yeah, I love this place," I said smoothly. "Didn't expect to see you either." The guy beside her extended his hand. "I'm Nate," he said. "Emma's boyfriend." I shook it politely. "Nice to meet you, Nate." "Oh, I've heard all about you," he interrupted with a grin. "The famous ex." Leah raised an eyebrow, amused. Emma flushed slightly, forcing a laugh. "We were just catching up on old times," she said quickly. "Right." I smiled. "Sure. Just friends. That's what we always were, right?" The words hung in the air like smoke. She shifted uncomfortably, realizing how hollow they sounded now. Leah slipped her hand through mine, an easy, natural gesture. "We were just heading to get drinks," Leah said, her tone polite but firm. "Nice meeting you both." Emma's smile faltered. "Of course," she said softly. "Enjoy." As we walked away, Leah leaned closer. "That looked tense." "Not really," I said, smirking. "That was closure." Later that night, my phone buzzed again. A message from Emma. "You didn't have to be so cold. I was just trying to be nice." I stared at the screen for a moment, then typed back, "You wanted to be friends." Friends don't owe each other warmth all the time. Sometimes they just move on. No response. Hours passed. Then, just before midnight, another text. "He's not you." I put my phone down and laughed quietly to myself. Not out of arrogance, but relief. The cycle had finally revealed itself. She wasn't in love with me. She was in love with the version of herself that existed when she had my attention. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Leah was asleep beside me, her head resting gently on my shoulder. For the first time, I realized that real peace doesn't come from revenge or closure. It comes from building a life that no longer needs either. Emma's story had ended long ago. I was just living the sequel she'd never be a part of. Weeks passed, and life finally felt still. Steady, light, uncomplicated. Leah and I grew closer, but not in a rushed way. We built something that felt calm, real. No games, no guessing. For once, I wasn't trying to prove my worth to anyone. It was strange how peace could feel so unfamiliar at first, like silence after a long storm. Then one evening, I got another message from Emma. Short, hesitant, "Can we talk?" One last time. I stared at it for a while. My first instinct was to delete it. But something in me, maybe curiosity, maybe closure, made me reply, "Sure." Tomorrow, same place. The next day, she arrived 10 minutes late, looking smaller somehow. The sharp edges of confidence she used to wear were gone. She sat down quietly, fingers wrapped around her coffee cup like it was keeping her together. "I'm not here to make things weird," she started softly. "I just wanted to apologize. For everything." Her voice trembled a little. "I hurt you. And I see that now. I thought keeping you as a friend meant I could avoid losing you completely. But in doing that, I lost your respect too." I nodded slowly. It wasn't bitter, just honest. "Yeah, you did." She looked down, then up again, eyes glistening. "You don't hate me, do you?" "No," I said truthfully. "I don't have the energy for hate. I just stopped needing you." That silence, it landed hard. I could see her trying to absorb it, maybe even accept it. "You're different now," she said finally. "More sure of yourself. I wish I'd seen that when we were together." I smiled gently. "Maybe I needed to lose you to find it." She exhaled shakily, wiping a tear. "I just wanted you to know I'm happy for you." You seem genuinely okay. I am, I said. And I hope you get there too. We sat there for a few quiet moments, no anger, no pretense. Just two people who had finally stopped pretending they were meant to stay in each other's stories. When we stood to leave, she gave a small, sad smile. Guess this is goodbye then. Not really, I replied. Just the end of pretending we're still the same people. As she walked away, I felt something lift, the last trace of the weight I'd been carrying for months. She turned once at the door, maybe hoping I'd look back. I didn't. Not out of pride, but peace. Outside, the evening air was cool. My phone buzzed. A text from Leah. Dinner tonight? I miss you. I smiled. On my way. That's the thing about endings. Sometimes they're not about letting go of someone else, but about finally holding on to yourself. That night with Leah felt different. There was no grand confession, no dramatic realization, just comfort. The kind that doesn't demand attention or apology. We cooked together, laughed about nothing, and somewhere between the soft light and the smell of garlic on the stove, I realized I'd finally stopped measuring my happiness against the past. After dinner, we sat on the balcony, watching the city hum below us. Leah rested her head on my shoulder. You've been quiet, she said. Just thinking, I replied. About her. I smiled faintly. About everything that led me here. She looked up at me, her expression calm. You don't owe me your story, she said, but I think you're stronger for it. I nodded. I used to think strength meant holding on. Now I know it means letting go, quietly. We didn't talk about Emma again. There was no need. The version of me that once chased closure had already faded. I didn't want to win. I just wanted to live. Over the next few weeks, I focused on that, living. My work started taking off again. I landed a project I'd been trying to get for months. I even started teaching photography workshops on weekends. Every time I shared a bit of my passion with someone, I felt more grounded, more real. One afternoon, I got a message from a mutual friend. Hey, just a heads up, Emma's moving to another city. Got a new job offer. I smiled at the screen. No anger, no sadness. Just a quiet kind of closure that didn't need words. That evening, Leah and I walked along the river. The sun dipped low, painting the water gold. She slipped her hand into mine, and everything felt right. Not perfect, but real. You ever think about what you'd say if you saw her again? She asked gently. I thought for a moment. Yeah, I said finally. I'd tell her thank you. Leah looked surprised. For what? For letting me realize that love shouldn't feel like waiting, I said, and that sometimes the best revenge is peace. She smiled, squeezing my hand. I think that's the most mature thing I've ever heard. I laughed softly. Guess I finally grew up. We kept walking in silence, the kind that doesn't need to be filled. I realized that the pain, the lessons, the loss, they had all shaped me into someone who could finally love without fear. For the first time in years, I wasn't haunted by what could have been. I was grateful for what was. And as the night settled around us, I knew the story that started with heartbreak was ending with something much rarer, peace without bitterness. But there was one last moment ahead of me. A final test, unexpected and strangely poetic. It happened 3 months later, on a random evening when I stopped by that same cafe, the one where everything had started and ended. I wasn't there for nostalgia, it was just close to my office, and I wanted a quiet cup of coffee after a long day. When I walked in, I saw her, Emma. Alone, sitting by the window, the same table where she'd once said those words, "We'll always be friends." She looked up, startled for a second, then smiled faintly. I hesitated, then nodded politely. She waved me over. "Just coffee," she said quickly, as if to reassure me. "No deep talks, I promise." I chuckled and sat down across from her. There was no tension, no lingering bitterness. Just two people who had finally lived enough to stop pretending they hadn't changed. She glanced at my wrist and noticed the bracelet Leah had given me. "You seem happy," she said softly. "I am," I replied. "You?" She hesitated, then smiled with quiet honesty. "Getting there." We talked about work, life, travel, nothing emotional, nothing loaded. The conversation felt clean. And maybe that was the real closure. Not grand apologies, not late-night confessions. Just peace in the ordinary. When I stood to leave, she reached out. "You really did mean it, didn't you?" "Mean what?" "That we'd always be friends." I paused, thinking of everything. The pain, the distance, the lessons, the growth. Then I smiled. Yeah, I said. But not the way we thought. She nodded slowly, understanding. You're a good man, she said quietly. I smiled. No. Just a better one than I used to be. As I stepped outside, the city air felt cool and light. I didn't look back this time. I didn't need to. The chapter had written itself to the end, and for once, it didn't end with heartbreak, just balance. Leah texted me right then, dinner's on me tonight. I've got something to tell you. I smiled, slipped my phone into my pocket, and started walking home. And in that moment I realized Emma's last words had been right all along. We would always be friends, just not in the way she imagined. That was the real meaning of absolutely.